Hello there, great farmers and agripreneurs. Welcome to another exciting podcast show with Aka Joshua Salvation, the Agro King. Today, our podcast episode promises to be very enlightening as we are going to be discussing the sources of risk and their management. Now, this topic will cover feed and feeding risk, poultry health risk and its management, security and environmental risk, as well as its management. So, without further ado, let's dive into the podcast episode today. And to the feed and feeding risk, hunger or starvation constitutes a kind of stress to poultry birds, and also an underfed or malnourished bird can often result to cannibalism, egg pecking or eating, slow and stunted growth, reduced egg production, poor egg quality, and any stress can suppress the body immunity, which can make the birds highly susceptible to diseases coupled with high mortality, which are sources of loss to farmers. So from this we know that feed or lack of feeding can pose threat or risk in poultry management. Now, what are the way of managing feed and feeding risk in poultry? Feed is the major source of poultry production, and therefore the ingredients as well as the feed should be sourced from credible feed ingredient marketers and feed millers. A new entrant into the poultry business should contract old poultry farmers on credible sources of feed in their locality. Now, when formulating your feed, the nutritional need of the birds should be put in place. Different types of nutrients that are needed for the poultry growth, different growth stages should actually be made available. Store your feed and feed ingredients in places with good ventilation to prevent heating up and molding. Now, during storage of feed and feeding ingredients, it should be free from all form of infestation or contamination. It is proper to make your feed store free from rats as they can serve as vectors of diseases in your poultry farm. Feeds and feed ingredients should not be stored for too long so as not to prevent loss of nutrients. A maximum storage period for your feed should last 4 weeks. To be sincere, 4 weeks is enough for you to store your feed or feed ingredients. Now, your feed most especially, not feed ingredients, sorry. Now, birds should be given enough quality of feed and cool water every day, and at least 75% of your birds should have access to the feed at a time, meaning that enough feeders and drinkers should be made available for birds, especially during their brooding stage. Alright, during their breeding stage, feed and water should be provided ad libitum. That's as it finishes, you're actually replacing it, because that's how you can actually increase their growth and prevent death or would I say mortality. Now, thoroughly mix remaining feed in the feeder with new feed. Alright, do not allow the remaining feed to stay underneath while the new ones stay on top. Now, once they consume the new feed, leaving the old feed there for a longer period of time, is actually going to mold. Alright, it's going to heat up and it will cause molding. And most times, if you're not very observant, you won't actually take notice of that, and your birds will contract diseases due to that ignorant behavior. Over to the next risk or source of risk is health. Alright, poultry health risk and its management. Poultry health risk and its management. Poultry health is one of the most important aspects of the management of poultry farm, and low income and in some cases zero income characterizes these conditions in poultry. It is as a result of poor growth, low production, increased cost of production, and in extreme cases death of birds associated with this disease outbreak. Some predisposing factors that cause diseases include hunger, starvation, poor sanitary conditions, harsh weather, and other stressors such as negligence with vaccination and medication regimes, poor housing, and ignorance among farmers. Poultry health risk management. How can you manage your poultry health risk? 1. You carefully follow the routine of vaccination and medication regimes as prescribed for prevention and control of various diseases from qualified and accredited poultry specialists, experts, or veterinarians, including experienced poultry farmers. Report promptly any outbreak which you cannot diagnose to experienced poultry farmers, poultry health officials or officers, or veterinarians for help. You can as well, most especially, do not house birds of different sources and ages together, because at different stages of the life of poultry birds they are predisposed to diseases of different kinds. So if you are housing different ages of birds together, you're actually cross-contaminating those birds if there is any disease outbreak, and that can result to severe mortality. Avoid contamination of feed and water, especially contamination of feed with rat feces and urine in the store. Cull or separate immediately any sick bird, and if possible, provide foot mats soaked with antiseptic at the entrance of the poultry house. You can as well do that with the provision of a dip, that is creating a hole or a dip in front of a poultry pen and filling it with water and antiseptic or disinfectant, in which any person or all poultry workers who have access to your poultry pen would have to disinfect their footwears as well as their feet before entering your poultry pen. Do not allow people to enter your poultry house at will, especially other poultry farmers, to avoid spread of diseases. Prevent local fowl from coming in contact with your birds or coming even near to your poultry house. Source of day-old chicks must be from reputable sources, especially hatcheries. Now, vaccines and drugs should be sourced from credible veterinarians or credible sources only. And you must note that the cold chain of vaccine should not be broken. That is, from the point of purchase of vaccine and the time to use. Now, the vaccine should remain very cold. Most people actually put it in an ice block, alright? And others can actually put it inside a vacuum flask and refrigerators to make sure that it maintains its cold chain before the time of vaccination. Cause of any death of birds should be carefully established, and preventive measures should be put in place to prevent reoccurrence of such mortality. Now, dead birds or chickens should be buried or disposed far away from the poultry house. Maintain good ventilation in your poultry pen and keep the litters of your poultry dry. Wash your drinkers regularly and your feeders as well. You can clean those. Now, debeak adult birds to prevent pecking, which create wounds that may lead to death. Now, this is most importantly when you're dealing with your pullets. You have to debeak them to prevent pecking, and that can even cause loss for you when they start pecking their eggs. Going on to the next is security and environmental risks. Alright, animals or predators such as cats, dogs, snakes, and even man. When I say man or human beings, I don't mean everyone, okay? I mean thieves, alright, can actually be enemies of your poultry enterprise. Theft could pose a great failure to poultry business, while suspicious activities of poultry attendants can actually cause bankruptcy, alright, in poultry business, especially when you have poultry attendants that are all actually pick your eggs once a while or pick your eggs all the time and take to their homes for consumption, or most of them steal your birds or even cook your birds in your farm without your knowledge. That can cause bankruptcy because your profit as well as the cost of production is being consumed already. Now, environment is actually a great factor that determines the performance of your birds, as it has effect on the feed intake, disease outbreak, and spread. Now, two major environmental stressors are heat and cold, which are at extremes in some part of Nigeria that at certain periods of the year. Now, I would like to actually give a brief point here. When you are actually feeding your birds, take notice of heat period. When there is excess heat, your poultry birds would prefer more water to feed. So during heat period or extreme hot period, make sure, especially for your broilers, since they contain fat, make sure you provide them with lots of cool water. When you notice that the water is hot, please change it. During heat periods, make sure you are close to your birds or have someone at a standby to check your birds from time to time, because when they finish consuming that water, they need to get new water immediately. So, and that water must be cool. Now if the water gets hot, it needs to be changed. At that period of time, during heat period, your birds might not consume so much feed, but during cold period or cool period, your poultry birds consume more feed and take less water. Now, what are some ways of managing the environmental and security risk? What are ways of managing them? Now, your poultry houses should be well secured against predators. You can as well set traps for predators if necessary. Feeds and feed ingredients should be protected from rats. Steps should be taken to prevent stealing of your poultry products, and record keeping will actually help you achieve this faster. Okay, because causes of sudden drop can actually be effectively established during poultry record keeping. Poultry houses should be well ventilated and sited near a tree or trees. Okay, trees should actually be planted near your poultry house because it helps in cross ventilation. It helps in absorption of the ammonia, or carbon gases that are emitted from your pen, and provide fresh oxygen for your poultry birds. Small scale poultry house constructed using grass or asbestos roofing reduces heat, so you can as well do that, but that's majorly on small scale. During hot period, you give your birds anti-stress containing vitamins, minerals, and amino acid. Now, during extreme heat, the quality of feed and time of feeding is essential to maintain good production performance. Birds may be fed at night when the appetite is high and when the temperature is low. Water should be changed at regular interval, like I said before, during hot period. During extreme cold weather, warmth should be provided by covering the house with sacks or nylon. Heating of the poultry birds may also be necessary using coal pots or whatever heat source you actually prefer. Alright, that is the end of our podcast episode for today. Hope you learned a lot on feed and feeding risk, poultry health management risk, as well as security and environmental risk, and how you can as well manage this risk. Thank you very much for listening once again. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please take this opportunity to do so, and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. On Facebook we are at Global Agro Connect, and on Instagram we are at GAC.2020. Thank you so much for listening once again, and if you would like us to take any topic of your choice, we are willing to make researches and come up with appropriate solutions for you, from consultants or agri consultants who can actually, or who are experts in this area, that actually help you. So whatever topic you feel you would like us to discuss in our next podcast or in our upcoming podcast episode, you can as well drop in the comment section below. And if you would wish to converse with me personally for any consultancy or probably for questioning, you can as well reach out to me on the number below, alright, on the description bar. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.